today's video, we are going to be talking about the best decks that you can use to climb to Infinite this season. Let's get right into it. In the interest of full transparency, I want to say at the top that this video is being recorded on the 3rd of June, one day before the season actually comes out. So I have not personally played with or seen the effects in-game of Gilgamesh or Athena. Now, I don't expect either of them to change this all too much. I don't think they'll destroy the meta or anything. They both seem good to fine. Alright, I'm just gonna say it right from the start. I think Hela is the best deck in Marvel Snap. I don't think that's a hot take, but we'll see. I'm sure some people would have preferred if I put Lockdown here, but I'm gonna stick with this, and I'll tell you why. Hela gives you a consistent power dump on 6, and I know Hela herself is not a consistent card, because she randomizes where you put the cards, but that hardly matters when you're bringing back an Infinite, Red Hulk, Death Magneto, and Black Cat. Your opponent just can't do anything about that. Now, there are a few cards that counter her. Currently, the main counters you could use would be Cosmo and Leech. There are problems with both of these cards, Cosmo being that most of the time you can either play around it, or it will end up being a 50-50 depending on where you and your opponent play the Hela and Cosmo respectively. Leech can be a problem, but honestly that's not that big of a deal because Leech only has a 2.5% play rate, and Cosmo only has a 9.2, so that's coming in at around 11% of the time you'll see one of these cards. And I would say that 9 out of 10 games where you don't see a card that counters your main win condition is pretty good. Now, as far as decks go that counter Hela, Lockdown is the obvious one. I didn't forget about it. I know Professor X also counters Hela. We're going to talk about that a lot more in just 1 second. But there are actually other decks that counter her, specifically ones that get absurdly big, such as Tribunal, Negative, and Destroy. All of those come in at around a 51% win rate against Hela. So you'll want to look out for those a little bit, but given that you can also get absurdly big, it's more like two heavyweight boxers fighting and less like a full-on counter to you, if that makes sense. Those 3 decks all have really low play rates anyway, coming in at a combined 9%, with Destroy being 5% and then Tribunal and Negative both being 2%. With all that being said, I think Hela is the best deck you can use to get to Infinite this season, but there are other ones. Let's talk about number 2, which is obviously going to be Lockdown. Alright, I just realized I haven't said this yet, but all the statistics I'm using are from Untapped and for an Infinite level only, because I didn't want bot games getting in the way. Alright, now we're all on the same page. Okay, let's talk about Lockdown. It is a very good deck for the simple reason that it counters a lot of other good decks. The main one being Hela. If you want to beat Hela, this is the deck to play. It's got a 56% win rate against Hela at Infinite, and that's really good. It also counters things like Patriot, Tribunal, Negative, and basically any deck that is trying to set up some sort of combo. Lockdown will get in the way. Now, even if you don't go against a combo deck of some sort, it's not that bad against most other decks. It turns out that when you get in the way of your opponent, it makes nearly every deck in the game struggle at least a little bit. Lockdown has a total win rate of 54%, which is very, very good. Now, with that being said, there is one specific deck that counters Lockdown easily, and it is the ongoing list with Jean Grey. Most Lockdown decks will hate to go against this, but the problem is that Ongoing currently only has a 1.8% play rate, and the reason for that is because Ongoing is bad against Bounce, Move, Loki, Tribunal, and even Thanos, and that is just too many decks for Ongoing to be one of the main staples of the meta, especially considering that Bounce is kind of everywhere right now. The main reason that I decided to put Hela above Lockdown in this list is just because I think Hela is consistently better. I don't really know why. Lockdown isn't really one of my favorite decks to play. I would rather play a lot of other things. Honestly, I'd rather play a Darkhawk deck. I really like Darkhawk. That's just personally for me, though. But it's really undisputed that Lockdown and Hela are the top 2. If you look at the statistics, nothing really comes close to it. So, if I had to choose between those 2 decks as to which one I would give the moniker of number 1, it has to be Hela. The amount of power she dumps down is just insane. I will say it is fun that Lockdown absolutely kills Hela. Like, just stomps on Hela. It's crazy. Lockdown is the deck you want to play if you want to beat Hela, but in general, I would say Hela is a better climbing deck, and let's get on to number 3. Loki. Alright, this is going to be my surprise deck, because honestly, There's a lot of parity in Snap right now, beyond Lockdown and Hela being the undisputed two best. I really like this deck because of all the counter cards it has, like Red Guardian and Shang-Chi. It's a lot of fun to play, and I love watching Werewolf jump around the board and get really big. Your main problem with this deck will be Hela and Ramp. It also doesn't do very well against toxic decks, but the play rate on those is very low at around 0.7%, so you probably shouldn't have to worry about that. There are a few reasons it doesn't do very well against those decks, and one of them is just that Ramp and Hela can both get pretty big and are not exceptionally good to swap into with Loki. However, you don't need to play Loki. You can just play this list as a bounce deck if you like what you drew, or if you just don't want your opponent's cards. It is exceptionally good at countering what your opponent wants to do, and you can definitely get a lot of 4 to 8 cubers with this deck if you play it right. Tribunal hates Red Guardian, right? That's just one example. There are so many other decks you could put into this spot, though, and I wouldn't disagree if you think something else should be here in place of this. I just want to make the point with this position that there are so many decks you can play right now. Destroy's decent, Bounce is good, Ongoing's good, and Move. I think Destroy and Bounce have around a 51% win rate, Ongoing's got 53, and Move has 54. They're all fine to climb with. These are just the ones that have the best statistics, and one Loki deck that I think is really great. With that being said, take everything I've said with at least one grain of salt. This is all coming from someone who in his last video quite literally forgot that Limbo was active in one of my 2 final games. I hope you all enjoyed this content. It's a lot different from what I normally do, so if you enjoyed, make sure to like and subscribe so I know that I should make more of this kind of stuff in the future. And if you want to see that video where I forgot that Limbo exists, it will be right here. I hope you all have a fantastic day. See you next time.